Welcome everybody, welcome. So you guys know who are watching this online or whenever you're going to be watching this, today or whenever time. If I'm looking around, it's because we have people here live, and I asked you that, you guys are more than welcome, whoever needs to go out, more than welcome, but just try to be a little bit quiet while we're filming, pretty please. So we're going to go on for about an hour today, and we have something really exciting. We're just going to go right into it. It's a celebration for animal medicine. And it's experiential because I also want you guys to experience what it is to journey into the non-ordinary realms and to understand the gifts of the animals there, to give you a taste of how to experience the book rather than just reading it, right? And then of course, we're going to be having classes too, and I'll tell you about that. We're going to be monthly classes starting August and then October, November for the animal medicine book, kickoff on that. But I did want to give you guys an understanding of how to explore the book. So because we are going to be doing journey work, we are going to start with a white fire limpia. And anytime you do any kind of journey work, and this is important too, if you're going to be doing journey work for, at home, I guess I'll stand up so everybody could see me too. If you're going to be doing any kind of journey work when you're at home or whenever, it's always good to clear your space. It's always good to smudge your space, to use a white fire limpia, to do something to clear your space. Why? Because you want to make sure you're going to be journeying into wherever you're going to be at is the energy is nice and clear. And it's not because you have bad energy, whoever comes in your space has bad energy. It's just you want it clear because you want to be able to receive clear messages, because this is also about developing symbolic communication with animals. And when the energy is clear, you can understand the messages that are coming through with the animals. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be starting that. And this recipe that we do with the white fire limpia, it's very simple. It's a couple handfuls of Epsom salt, a splash of rubbing alcohol, and we're using sage that was gifted to me. And we're going to be honoring the cardinal spaces. And whether you're watching this online or whether you're here, I'm just going to invite everybody to release into the fire anything that would impede you from getting the most out of today's journey and just the most out of today and whenever, And if you ever want to watch this again and you want to journey, yeah, it's here. It's an offering, an ofrenda for you. To the south, great-grandmother, great-grandfather moon sun. We understand, we speak with sacred gratitude. Baatik. Tenetina hahatik ak tanich. Baatik. Ekjel. To the west, great-grandmother, great-grandfather moon sun. We understand, we speak with sacred gratitude. Baatik. Tenetina hahatik ak tanich. Baatik. Zakchel. To the north, great-grandmother, great-grandfather moon sun. We understand, we speak with sacred gratitude. Baatik. Tenetina hahatik ak tanich. Baatik. Zakchel. To the north, great-grandmother, great-grandfather moon sun. We understand, we speak with sacred gratitude. Ba'adik. Tenetina hahadik tanich. Ba'adik. Takjel. To the east. Great grandmother. Great grandfather, moon, sun. We understand. We speak with sacred gratitude. Ba'adik. Tenetina hahatik tanich. Ba'adik. Yashjel. To the center. I am that I am. Great grandmother. Great grandfather, moon, sun. We understand. We speak with sacred gratitude. Ba'adik. All right. What was that, honey? Yes, please, 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 please. So, let me move this out of the way and put animal medicine up in front here. So I'm just going to go over. I'm going to start kind of backwards. And it's actually not backwards. It's actually full circle, which is very similar how we tell stories in indigenous traditions. And as many of you guys know, my mentors, they're from my four principal mentors. They're from. I met them in the Yucatec, in the Yucatan. Two of them were Yucatec Mayan, and two of them identify themselves as Nahua. And they also were versed in Yucatec Mayan traditions. And my academic background, this is what I studied. I studied got my master's studying ancient Mesoamerican shamanism and indigenous, a lot of the ancient indigenous traditions. So a lot of what I do is focus on that and versed in that. And I really do in all my books intend on reclaiming our history. Because a lot of the times it's like those things are in academia, the books are there, but it's just buried with a lot of like really heavy theory, and which was okay. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's all good. But I wanted to, in my books and everything that I do, I wanted to make them accessible to popular audiences. And not just that, but also show us how we can use a lot of this ancient wisdom in our day-to-day spiritual practices. So that's a lot of what I do. So in animal medicine, I'll start backwards. In the second portion of the book is the glossary. So I'm just going to open one and let's see here. I'll open up to squirrel. So what I do in the very first part of, and this is on page 155, I start out with a little description about what the squirrel, some of their habits, you know, whether they're nocturnal, diurnal, like what they eat, and also a lot of the mythologies, the traditions, what they were said, what the ancient Mesoamerican people, what they thought about them, some of the stories behind it. And I've done a lot of research. I got like pretty much from various different sources, from their artwork, from the codices, and also pre and post contact codices. And I meant before and after the Spaniards came here. So I start out with that, and I do that with 76 animals. And how I chose the animals were, these are the animals that they were the most talked about in the stories. They were like pretty much like if you were talked about, like if an animal was mentioned, I mention it. And the only exception I made was the mosquito. I had an agreement with them on the last shamanic stubborn journey, or with them when I was actually pitching it. I said, okay, I'll put you up there if you guys don't sting me. So I used to get like that. I was like, get stung. And I almost went the whole trip, but then we went to one of the sites, to Beach Altun, and I got stung by one. And I was like, okay, no, you're not coming in. So that was the only one. But it was the hummingbird and the mosquito, they have a lot of conflations together, surprisingly. So I was like, okay, you kind of got in there. I mentioned them a little bit, like I had like a little splurge there about them, but that was about it. But all the animals here are mentioned in somewhere, in the codices, in the artwork. Yeah, so that's how I chose them. Then after I tell you a little bit about the background, what I do is I tell you the Non-Ordinary Realm Association. And you know, we'll be doing this in the second portion of today, is discussing what does that mean, non-ordinary realm. the non-ordinary realms, there were various sub-levels within too, right? But there were three principal non-ordinary realms, the Upperworld, Middleworld, and Underworld. And as we're going to cover is every one of those realms had a different gift. And also, all the animals were also associated with each and every one of those non-ordinary realms. So a lot of times it was done in traditions where they did trans-journeying, when they did ceremonies, when they honored them. What they would do is they would call upon an animal that was associated from that non-ordinary realm. That way they could go there to get gifts. And we'll talk about like what were some of the gifts, what were some of the medicines of each and every one of the non-ordinary realms. Because a lot of times too, and I mentioned this too in my second book, Curanderismo, Soul Retrieval, which is, somebody mentioned this too, is Esoteric SN, our last interview, Better Work Bitch. She's like, so this is kind of like, they go hand in hand a lot. And they kind of do. They kind of do. And I don't know if I would say like all, like they all do, like all of my books, because a big part of that big fundamental understanding is that soul energy. Like a lot of things were soul energy, and what I'm going to be working on right now in my ancestral veneration book, a lot of it is understanding how ancestors are soul energy. So, you know, sometimes our soul pieces are in the non-ordinary realms to getting medicine. And we're also going to be, in the classes, we're going to be touching this on a little bit more too, in terms of how to go in and do soul retrieval work with the help of animals. Because I do mention in Curanderismo soul retrieval, and a little bit here is, you know, usually when I'm on a journey, usually there's an animal that's associated with that realm that helps. So then I go and I talk about the spiritual and shape-shifting medicine, because a big focus in working with animals was shape-shifting. And this wasn't just about physical shape-shifting, okay? And that's very, very important, because I was asked that in an interview. I'm like, did you even look at my book? So were you talking about werewolves? I'm like, and then anyway. The girl's like, shh. Oh my God, why are you interviewing me? Anyway, don't interview me if you haven't even looked at it, please. So just not fun. So anyway, you know, it's the shape-shifting. There's also like etheric, you know, because there's medicine in our etheric body, and a lot of, like, when we have illnesses, they appear in our etheric bodies. When there's something that's going to be happening to us, that information is in our etheric bodies. So a lot of times what was done is they would go and they would tap in with these animals. And I show it, I had a little video that I put together on TikTok and my IG that shows some of the Maya-based images. And there's definitely shape-shifting going there. There's like one where like a man's like a rabbit, and like some kind of like snake, and like some like there's like a jaguar with a man becoming a squirrel, and but there's different types too, because there's actually people floating, and there's actual different phenomenon. So it wasn't, this wasn't just about, and one of my mentors taught me too about astral shape-shifting. So there was etheric shape-shifting, there was astral shape-shifting, and there was also, yes, there was physical shape-shifting, and there's also a lot of instances, like some of the most talked about instances, because they were like, what the heck, was by location. When someone was present, and they were also their animal. And this is very different in my research, because I did research this, because this isn't just something that happened in Mesoamerica. In Europe, it was, they did bilocation, but usually what was done there is like the person was actually sleeping, because I don't know, that's at least what I read, like there wasn't any instances where the person was awake. In Mesoamerica, they were very well aware of the soul animating energies that were required to engage in shape-shifting, which is what I also cover, and we'll also touch about at the very end of today. So it tells you, because when you, for example, like the squirrel, you know, I have here agility, adaptability, ruggedness, and fearlessness. So if you want to tap into something that is fearless, you would tap into, and you would meditate, and you would see yourself. And I have like different exercises too, how to do trans-journeying to tap into that squirrel, and to imprint it into your etheric bodies, to imprint it into your astral, to imprint it in yourself, so you get that medicine, that spiritual, that shape-shifting medicine, because that's another way of tapping into animal medicine, right? And then at the very, the last part of it, I do symbolism meanings, because now we're gonna head into the first portion of this, the symbolism meanings, because, you know, sometimes we're sleeping, sometimes we're We're just journeying. We're just having a daydream. We're just daydreaming and an animal comes into our mind. Or like sometimes they come into us and they give us a gift. I had a squirrel one time come and give me like a piece of an apple, and it was funny because somebody mentioned this in an interview, like, wow, that's pretty crazy because squirrels are stingy, but like I won't say the bad word. I was like, but that's something. There's some kind of symbol there. The squirrel's trying to get your attention. And I'll tell you like why that's important too, in terms of like what are their ordinary traits, to like be aware of them, right? So the symbolic communication, which I have it's in the first section of the book, and it's the third chapter. I also talk about like how to just engage and start engaging communication with them. I have I talk about this too. I have a communication that I have with crows. When I see two, there's like, when two is flying over me like away, it's like a warning, like something that I was worried about is like going away. When there's three, there's like, we have a communication with the crows, and I've developed that with certain animals. And I like have all these, like, I talk about like different ways to do that. One of them that's very, very important is familiarizing yourself with an animal. The reason for that is because she mentioned like squirrels they don't share a lot. It's like knowing like their natural traits. And I talk about this too. And one of them was one of my clients that I work with. Did I get permission? Who I'm going to talk about. She actually was she was having a connection with an owl. And when she first came to me, she was like frightened to death of owls. And she was like, "What's wrong with me? Am I going to die?" This is like because in her culture, Armenian culture, owls are like when you see an owl, like there's going to be death coming. And I was like, no, like, you're good. Like, and I started telling her, like, you're having an experience, a death, so to speak, possibly even an ego death, but there's a death of your old life, because she was living a rinse and repeat, just like going, and there was like no life in her life. So when she saw an owl in broad day, and she was driving this is like one of the big freeways here in downtown LA, driving down the 110 to the 10, she was driving to her deposition, that kicked off everything. She swore to me, she saw a huge white owl fly over her car. She's like, no, it was an owl. I was like, really? No, it was an owl. It was an owl. Everything's going to be awesome. Like, she calls me right before deposition. Everything's going to be wonderful. Everything's going to be good. And it was. The case settled that day. But my important is that if she didn't know about owls, that they're nocturnal, she wouldn't know that was like, there was an omen that was coming in. There was something a little bit maybe unusual, or like you see like what an animal looks like. If it looks like it has like a belly, like a bigger belly than usual, they're probably pregnant. So it's a message having to do with the birth of something, not necessarily the birth of yourself. So like, I don't know. Don't think like, oh my God, I'm gonna have a baby. That happened too. Like, but there's a birth of something, So that's what I recommend to do that. And there's also, what I call intuitive energy surges. And we do a lot of these things in the workshops too. And I talk a little bit about it in the book as well. Of course, we're gonna do more work on it in the workshops. It's like when you go through, like, what could it mean? Could it be like something that I'm gonna get a new job, or I'm gonna get a new partner, or something, you go through that. And like you write down like a list of like, what are some associations that you have with a dream where you saw that animal? You just like, it's an automatic writing. Like you just, and then you go through each one and you tune in to see which one gives you an energy surge. Because that's what happens. Like when especially when we pay attention to it, like we just get like the surge, like that's the one, that's it. So that's, and it's a really good way to develop our intuition too. And there's also, and that's another way to develop our intuition, to understand and develop communication with them. And a very fundamental way is courting them. And they court us too. And recognizing when they're courting us. I've had like, initially way back, like, I don't want to say like, like a little over 20 years ago, I had a lot of crows like courting me. Then I had one that did like, this one partner at this one law firm was making fun of me over something that was like horrible that had happened to me. The crow did a kamikaze into his window. I was like, at first I was like, you didn't need to do that. but they had, I was like, I love you guys. You have my back. Like, they just became like right here. They're right here with me like crows, like seriously, like definitely, that was definitely a message that they were courting me. And I mean, sometimes they don't come that blatant. Sometimes they may give you a feather or they may give you a skin. They're courting you. They're courting you. Pay attention. You know, there's messages that are like, they want to work with you. They want to work with you. And you can also court them by what I did. Sometimes when I do want to work with a certain animal, because I know about their medicine, I will put something of them, their image, on my altar. You know, I will put something next to my bed so I can dream with them and I can journey with them when I'm sleeping. You know, so there's different ways, and I talk a little bit about it in the chapter. And of course, we're going to go into a lot more in the workshops to come. And you know, dream work is like just basically focusing on like thanking them before you go to bed and putting an image of them, but practicing dream work with them is also really good too. And also understanding their mythological symbolic discourse, like what did other, and especially, I mean, there's many cultures around the world. I of course just focus on, not just, but I focus on Mesoamerica. But it's nice to know because when we're working intuitively, we're tapping into a grid. We're tapping into a grid, you know, and it's not just like, I know Carl Jung talks a lot about it in dream work, and it's a little bit psychoanalytic, but there's like understanding that we've all had like messages that we receive that we can all tune into, that we share. It's like this grid that we tap into. So it's something that, it's nice to know the mythologies around animals. It's really good. It's a really good way to understand, to start developing what is that symbolic communication. And, you know, of course, there's also the practical things, of strengthening energy lines of communication, right? So those are some of that. That's just basically like the third portion of my book, and I kind of like give you different ideas there. And then, you know, going back now to the first chapter, is the non-ordinary realms. And the non-ordinary realms, because a lot of it there, it's like getting medicine from these places. So, you know, for example, and today we're gonna journey into the underworld. And I'll work backwards again, or cyclically, I should say, really, is the reason why, is because we're doing the underworld because a lot of us, like, and I know, maybe not so much with the people that I work with regularly, but the new people that come to me when I tell them, like, oh, you're going, you know, through like a dark night of the souls, like you're going in the underworld. And they're like like they kind of look at me like, no, it's not like hell or anything. And they're like I can see like them thinking like, why did I schedule this session with her? Like, what am I doing here? So it's not hell, okay? The underworld is a space where there's medicine there. A lot of time our soul pieces are there, like especially like if there's like sexual trauma. A lot of times, like when there's sexual trauma or physical trauma, our soul pieces there are seeking shelter. They don't want to be discovered. They're like I find a lot of times I work with people, men and women, not just women, men and women. I find them like, I'm good here. Like I'm seeking shelter here. Or they have like, they were bullied a lot of times too. They're in the underworld. You know, so there's medicine there in the underworld, and a lot of the times it's understood our shadow aspects are there. So that's what we're doing the journey with the underworld. So the upperworld, the medicines in the upperworld is the medicines. What we do is we can access and work with our ancestors, work with divine beings, work with different spiritual guides. Connect with them, open up to them, and our animal guides can lead us to them. And there's also tapping into the sacred energies of rebirth, resurrection, renewal, especially if we're going to a new cycle in our life. And sometimes our soul pieces are there because, and this one's a little difficult. Sometimes maybe you need help with, like some people that are in this, they may not see it, but who knows? Maybe you may see it. Maybe you're kind of like transitioning out of that. Is sometimes our soul pieces are there because someone doesn't want to look at something that is right in front of them. They're just like, oh no, my marriage is wonderful. And their husband's like filing for divorce next week, you know? Like, everything's fantastic, you know? And like, they're just not wanting to look at something that is right in front of them. You know, or they had like a mythical like mom, dad that was like a superhero, and then they found out that their mom, dad was like cheating on everyone in the world or had a second family or something like that really just And when they found that out, that soul piece left. That soul piece left. They're like, I'm here. My mom, dad never did that. Or my aunt, uncle never did that. Or like they don't want to see something that is right in front of them. So it's nice to have an animal. And pay attention to that too, because if you find that an animal is taking you to the upper world, like if you have a guide that's taking you to the upper world, that might be something that's going on with you. Just a thought. Just ask yourself, is there something that I'm not wanting to see? And also, there's also too medicine there in the upper world for a lot of people that are really serious. You can come to me because I'm like very childlike, But like if you like need that medicine of childlike innocence and joy, that's a really wonderful place in the upper world. And I talk about a story too. I share a story in my book when I needed that. I needed to be like a warrior of light, but still keep it light. I had somebody who was like, didn't want to fix certain things, and I had to like put my attorney hat on, but like do it like very like, okay, I'm going to give you an opportunity to fix this. Or else I can send you the bill. Which one would you like? So it's like one of those things when you need to like be joyful, but you can also be strong too, to tap into a animal that's connected to strength in the upper world as well. And there's also, we charge our items with planetary alignments. A lot of the times, like the 888 portal that is coming up, the Lionsgate portal that is coming up, is accessing and tapping into, because there's also mythological animals associated with the upper world, like, for example, the feathered serpent, which I do talk about in my book. And it was very much accessed and worked with in Mesoamerican traditions. I mean, that was very, very common. Kukulkan, Quetzalcoatl, Kukulkan, Kukumats. And there's also working with soul energies with the cardinal spaces, with the sun. Because the cardinal spaces, that's what I talk about in Curanderismo soul retrieval is, in all the cardinal spaces, when we're going through the space of the South, of discovering understanding, we can ask the South, the spirits of the South, because it wasn't just believed like the South was a place. It was believed that there were beings, there were animals, there were symbols, there was energy, viable energy we can access and tap into and get soul energy from. Because doing healing work on ourselves and soul retrieval, it takes energy. It takes energy, and it's not just like, oh, this is fun, like we know it's nice to have help. It's nice. I mean, it's, it can be, but it's nice to have help. So that's a little bit about the upper world, and I talk a lot about the animals of the upper world. But just to give you a little bit is a lot of times the upper world the animals that were thought of there, and I also do mention for every animal that I talk about the, as I mentioned, the non-ordinary realm. So if you're not sure about which realm that they're from, you can go right to the animal and it will tell you which realm that they were thought of and why. Why, what was the connection? And a lot of times with the upper world, the animals that were associated with the animals that could fly, animals that lived in the trees, like, a lot of times like squirrels and monkeys, that were also diurnal, like they were like mainly like just day animals. Those are usually the animals of the upper world. And also animals like, for example, like the hummingbird or the quetzal bird, they also believe that the feathers were actually giving tonali. That's also why they wore the feathers, is because it was believed that by wearing the feathers, it was also giving the person tonali, sacred soul energy. And they would charge them in the sun. And so those are the animals of the upper world. So the animals of the, and the gifts of the middle world, we connect with the middle world. Sometimes when it's nice to do that. And I find myself a lot of times in the middle world, like sometimes it's one of the first places we go to when I do soul retrieval, because it's usually connected to an animal will show you that there was a different point in time in your life or another past life that you need to understand or see something about, because there was a soul lost there. And it happens randomly. It's happened to me where it's not even like extensive. Like there was one time where I just had, it was like a rabbit that was, it was like a rabbit that was taking me to one. And then I saw myself and I was singing one time. And I remember the person that my mom was with for a while, he was like watching me like sing, and I was doing a solo, and my voice, like I was cool with everybody, but I did not necessarily want him there. And I looked and I was like, and my voice cracked. And I remember like him going like this. And I had completely blocked that out. But it was like the rabbit that like took me to that time. It's like, do you know why it's so important for you to sing? You know, it's important for you like not to like care, not to be shy about that. And it was like, it just happened just like that. It was like during the day. I wasn't even like journeying. But I understood it like took me to that time to see like, you had a soul loss there. You had a soul loss there and you stopped wanting to sing. You stopped wanting to be like outgoing. You like shut down for a long time. You know, so that's a lot of times too in the middle world is to understand that there was a different point in time in our lives when something happened. So the animals will take us to those spaces, or past life too. It's not just this life as well. And a lot of times so we can tap into the energies of renewal, of fertility, of creation and abundance. So if we're having issues with abundance, you know, because a lot of times like you think of like rabbits, for example, or opossums that give like babies. They're constantly having lots of babies. Is you could tap into that to tap into abundance, you know, tap into growth. So that's another reason why you would want to work with the animal in the middle world, and work with the gifts of the middle world as well. And also learn how to be resilient and change, because in the seasons, everything's always changes. You know, in the middle world, like we're always having like, it's just a constant. Change is constant. Change is constant. It's not something, you know, we're going through different seasons. We're going through different phases of our life. It's sometimes we don't want things to change and we want to be like stuck in a little place like, nope, I don't want things to change. But it's like, it's helpful to work with animals. If you don't like change, work with an animal and work with the realm of the middle world. And it will see, it happened like, I'm good with it. Like now, like it was like for some reason, like winter was really hard for me. Like when I would drive home and it was dark, I just get like depressed. Like I don't like this, you know. Like, I don't know. That was me. That doesn't happen so much anymore. But what I started doing is I started working with the middle world more and understanding the gifts of like the night sun. That was another thing too. Understanding those gifts and understanding the gifts of the middle world and understanding how it's just what is good about this phase and appreciating it. And there's also, you know, gaining wisdom from the earth and its elements and gaining access to bounty, abundance, and rescripting things that have happened in the past, you know, the energy of it. Because even though, you know, when people ask me sometimes like, especially like if they didn't get something from their mother or their father or a family member or something, like they didn't get that. And I'm like, well, you can still give that to yourself. And that's in a sense, you're rescripting that. And to work with the middle world and do that. And it's nice to work with animals and that help us, that take us there to those spaces and do that as well. And so the underworld, which is what we're going to journey into. So the underworld, it's basically, you know, it does take us through tests. And that's, if you've ever familiar too, and I bring a lot of the stories too from the Popol Vuh and also the Legend of the Suns, Leyenda de los Soles, where the underworld is thought of you get tested. You're going to go through trials, you're going to go through tribulations, but if you can make it through, you will get regenerative gifts. You will be able to renew, you will be able to grow, you will be able to shift something. So there's just like, so like, it's beautiful. It can be beautiful. And we see a lot of our shadow aspects. You know, that can be difficult. That can be difficult, but it's good. It's good medicine to do that. So, you know, it's also a nice thing to do too. If you do magic, if you work with magic, a lot of times when I need to change something, I need to shift something, I work with the night sun. The night sun is all about transformative. When you want to shift something, you want to change something, you work with animals that are associated with the underworld and the medicines of the underworld when something needs to change. And also too it also allows persistence, courageousness, and humility. One of the things too in the Popol Vuh is that initially the hero twins were very vain. You know, they were just like, oh, we're just going to play our ball game and we don't care how loud we are, you know, whatever. And then afterwards, they have to like have so much faith, and they have to basically sacrifice themselves and allow themselves to be thrown into this river, but they come back resurrected. You know, they come back, they had to learn to be humble, how to like have faith. So that's another thing too. It's like, what's the medicine that's there that's going to take you out of those spaces, out of those dark night of the soul, so to speak. And also too, you know, a lot of times, as I mentioned, a lot of our soul pieces are there seeking some kind of, we feel like something scared us. Something scared us, something frightened us, so we're seeking shelter there. It's a lot of the times that we're there. So, and it's interesting because too, when I find somebody there, sometimes they're actually having fun in those places. You know, because they weren't able to, they didn't feel like they could have fun like outside, but they had to like go in the underworld to have fun, to play. To be, I find them like swinging around the cenotes with like mermaids and like just hanging out, you know. So there's that, and also working with earth keepers. You know, they have various names in indigenous traditions, but they're essentially, and they're actually in a lot of different mythologies from a lot of different traditions as well. They're actually beings that they can take us into different spaces, different times, and show us what happened, show us where we need to go. And I talk about more in the book. So in our journey, what we're going to be doing, and I have here, yeah, you know, I'm going to go ahead and ask, honey, can you help me pass this around? And just take a few drops in your hand and just pass it around. Okay, why talk about this? So what we're going to do for this journey is we're going to work with certain animal guides that are associated with the underworld. And just not to overlook too the animals of the middle world. I mentioned a couple of them already. Rabbits, opossum, because they can give a lot of babies. Also, like for example, bears. Bears, you know, they hibernate during winter time. They're seasonal. They're also crocodiles. And there were certain animals that could be associated with different levels as well. Like for example, which are now talk about some of the animals of the underworld. Like for example, like the duck. The duck could fly, so the duck was associated with the upper world. The duck was also like, it was fertile. It could like hang out here on Earth, and it could also dive into the water. Because it could dive into the water, it was associated with the underworld. So a lot of the animals, like why the water? Because it's believed that in the water, and especially in the cenotes, and there's a lot of cenotes in the Yucatan, is that you can tap into the underworld. You could tap into, and you could do a lot of divination work by seeing what was going on too in the underworld. So those are some of the animals there too with the underworld. And some of the other animals too of the underworld are ones that could go in between spaces, that could go and burrow in the ground. You know, like gophers. They can burrow into the ground, and like spiders. You know, they were, and rats and mice. And I also do talk about them too in my book too, because they are discussed in indigenous traditions, and they actually do have medicine too, and messages. And one of them too is also they're eavesdroppers. Like someone's like eavesdropping on you. Because that's what it said that they were meant to do. Like if you see a rat or like a mouse, like someone's like spying on you, like listening to you, like chisme kind of stuff. So there's like there's different like stories there too, and it's interesting because in a lot of cultures have that understanding about rats and mice. So the animals that we're going to be journeying with, one of them is bats. Bats. There was one bat called in Maya. Its name was Sots. Sots was actually a deity, and it was actually one of the deities of the underworld. And Zots was associated with adaptability. Like it was something like if like there was a change that was hard and difficult, like you adapted to it. Like which a lot of us had to do just recently with everything that happened with the pandemic. We had to adapt, you know, or else like a lot of us thought like, oh, it'll be over like next week, and then a year later we're like, oh, it's not over. I guess we're gonna adapt. You know, so adaptability is one of the gifts. And also being able to release. Being able to release and let go of things. Death. Letting things die. You know, sometimes there's a friendship. Sometimes there's a relationship that we have to just let go. we have to let go, and it's like we don't want to let go, but it's like, no, it's time to let go. So it's like you're seeing bats, it's like a lot of things of like releasing that, letting go of things and dying, letting that die away. And where there's death, there's always rebirth too. And revitalization, because they were also associated with, they were one of the night pollinators. They go and pollinate all the flowers. So there was also revitalization. Where there was death, there was life, there was revitalization. So it's that beautiful cycle of that. And another animal that we're going to be working with, coyote. And there's actually a lot of medicine in the coyote. Somebody wrote this, a post on my IG, like wrote a comment like, oh, thank you for saying that. Like they said something about like black magic and working with coyote. I'm like, okay, that's wonderful, but that's not what I'm talking about. Okay, it's not. I work magic, but I find other ways to do things to do exactly the same thing. Exactly, but not like no nasty stuff. Like I don't want any nasty stuff coming to me. So coyote is very cunning, and sometimes I do call on the coyote because I need something cunning and shrewd, resourceful. They're very resourceful. If you need to find like medicine that's resourceful medicine, you call on the coyote. And they're very creative. They were associated with the arts and sexuality. They were like one of them, like the deity was this is for the Mexica and a lot of the Central Mexican was he's like dancing and sometimes like he's a big he's fully equipped and he's like like dancing and he's like drumming and he has like a shell and he's just like dancing. So it's very much like when you need that energy of like moving energy and tantric energy, very much associated with the coyote. We're going to be working with the coyote too. Another very, very important animal was the jaguar, balam, the jaguar. Transformation, courage, and strength. So if it's something that you need, something that you need to tap into. And there's different ways. I'm going to take you into different ways of doing that into the underworld. Because I do talk about this in the book, and how to do this is you can go into these non-ordinary realms as the animal themselves. And I will tell you, it's awesome to be seeing yourself like as a jaguar and like moving like a jaguar. And sometimes I do this for myself, like I move, I'll dance, and I'll see myself and I'll let that energy move through me. And there's a way that then you start working more on etheric and astral level. Because that's also what I'll share with you too, because in becoming that animal, you have to raise your energies. And I'll talk about like what are the specific energies, but movement is a big thing. And moving the Hyoro energy, the sense of will. So I usually will like start moving into that and becoming them. And like move, and sometimes like when I have people here and we're dancing, I'll let people like, when the class is like, we'll have us move into the animals and flow into the energy of the animals. And especially if you're on your own and you're doing this, it's a way of experiencing the medicine and going into these spaces and working with the animal and the medicine of that. That's another way. And we're also going to be working with having them guide us. So the different ways of working with animals. So what I'd like for us to do is we're going to do some breath work. We're going to do one of the ones I do pretty much in all of my classes. And this one is called Cobra Pranayama breathing. And I also have this one as the Cobra, the energy rejuvenation. I have it in my old diffuser here too for all of us, so we can all just like, woo. So what it is, it's very simple. I'm going to show you the sequence of breath work that we're going to do. And then we're just going to go and do them. But first, just watch me, please. So what you're going to do, it's the mudras, a hand posture like so. You're going to use your index fingers, pressure on the temples, pinkies, pressure at the bridge of your nose. And then you're going to inhale from your core. Then I'm going to say inhale, you inhale. And then you exhale, release your hands. Okay? So that's going to be the Cobra Pranayama breathing. And for those of you who are new to journeying, and if you have energy rejuvenation, the oil, I highly recommend that you use that one because it's a really good one. Because journeying work does require energy, as I mentioned. A lot of times we fall asleep in meditation, we get tired because it takes energy out of us. So that's why a lot of us we're like, oh, I want to sleep, I'm tired. That's what happens. So this is a really good one to get energy from. And then what we're going to do is we're going to work with certain energy centers. And this is something that the Maya and also the Central Mexican peoples, they understood that the underworld was associated with the root, the sacral. Sometimes the solar plexus was the heart. Sometimes it was the underworld. There's a little bit of a different conflation there. But what we're going to do is we're going to stimulate these energy centers. And the way we're going to do that is we are going to do some mudras. And one of the mudras that we're going to do, it's called the Vayu mudra. This is a really good one to release. And we're going to keep this one. And the first energy center that we're going to stimulate is the tailbone, the root chakra. And it's the tailbone and genitalia area. And we're going to use our middle finger and our ring finger to put pressure in between our nose and our upper lip. And then we're going to inhale and exhale with the guttural, And when you're doing this, here at home, I want you to close your eyes, and I'll be guiding you the whole way through. And I promise I'll be like a good guide. I want you to just close your eyes and imagine that energy vibrating there, your genitalia and your tailbone. And know that this area is actually if you ever want to journey into the underworld, purposely go in there, stimulate that area, work with that area. It works. And then we're also going to work with so the root is very much associated with our identity, with our grounding. And the sacral, there's a little bit of a conflation there, a lot of issues with trust, trusting and feeling connected to belonging to our family, to our ancestors. And a lot of issues there, if there's anything that, it's a really good area to work with. And then we're going to work with the sacral chakra, and this one's going to be very simple. It's a couple fingers below the belly button, and the sound that we're going to be making is an oo. We're going to keep the Vayu mudra and then put pressure about 2 fingers below the belly button and focusing on that energy reverberating there where our fingers are at, okay? And then we're going to do I want to do one primal releasing breath work, okay? And I have other ones too in the book, but this one, I really feel it's important to raise our Hyodo energies. And that's the energy that really that's our sense of will, but we can will into being and shapeshift into something and go and will and become that. And then I'm going to have us journey into the sacred heart. And I'll tell you a little bit about why. Because a lot of times when I do journey work, it's very intentional. I know exactly, I'm guiding people into certain realms so they can explore more of that. So the primal releasing, what you're going to do, you inhale and I'll just show you when I'm sitting down. Well, actually, I'll show so that way people can see me there in the back. Is you inhale and you go, ah, and then shoulders back, chest down, it's ha! Exhale, relax. And you really want to allow yourself to be primal in this. And I recommend to do this at least once a week, honestly, because I mean, guys, it's a big mixed bag of nuts out there. It just is. Okay, it's just good to move energy. Just good to move energy. And maybe it was a beautiful week, but there was something that you're you didn't want to pay attention to. In there, in your astral realm, somewhere, it's recorded in there. Move that energy, shake that energy out. And then I'm going to take you through, and I'm going to take you into different ways of connecting with the bat, with the coyote, and the jaguar, okay? Because I want to give you just an exploration of that. So I'm going to go ahead, and please close your eyes as you're doing this. We're going to start with the cobra pranayama breathing. So the hands are like a cobra's mouth. Index fingers, pressure on the temples. Pinkies, pressure at the bridge of your nose. And remember, you are just inhaling. It's not breath of fire where you're inhaling and exhaling. Ready? And begin. Inhale. Exhale, release your hands. Second set, ready? And begin. Inhale. Exhale, release your hands. Third and final set, ready? And begin. Inhale. Exhale, release your hands. Beautiful, very gently, open your eyes. So now what we're going to do is a Vayu Mudra. Index finger at the very bottom of your thumb, other fingers are straight, my love. Okay. So what we're gonna do is the middle finger is right between your nose and your upper lip. Remember, we inhale and exhale with an and let that sound reverberate there at our tailbone. Ready? And inhale. And exhale. Inhale. And exhale. Last one, inhale. And exhale. Beautiful. And just very gently open your eyes, putting your fingers now, keeping them in the Vayu Mudra. 2 fingers below your belly button. Please close your eyes again. We're going to inhale and exhale with an ooh, letting that sound reverberate where our fingers are at. Ready? And inhale. And exhale. Ooh. Inhale and exhale. Let's do one more. Inhale and exhale. Beautiful. Relax your hands. Now we're going to do the primal releasing. Remember, it's inhale, shake your body, shoulders back, chest out, and it's ha! And then exhale, relax. Ready? And inhale. And shake. Release. Exhale, relax. Inhale. And shake. Release. Exhale, relax. Let's do 2 more. Ready? And inhale. And shake. Last one. Inhale. And shake. Release. Beautiful. And just continue to close your eyes. And I invite you to turn your attention and focus to the center of your chest where your heart chakra is at. And please allow yourself to flow into a space of love. Seeing yourself enveloped in peace, balance. Seeing yourself enveloped in violet fires. Let these beautiful warm violet fires caress you, love you, envelop you. See yourself enveloped in white fires of purification, resurrection. And as you step within your sacred heart, El Sagrado Corazón, you realize that you are in a jungle on a beautiful full moon evening. And for this journey, it is El Coyote, who has come forward to guide you on this journey. The coyote that has come forward is inviting you to join him, to see yourself tapping into fearlessness, adaptability. See yourself become a coyote. And the coyote asks you to chase him, run with him. See yourself in your mind's eye, running at night through the jungle, hunting, being free. And you approach a cave, and there is El Bat, the bat's Zots. A human bat shapeshifter. And you realize you are now in your human form. Bat Zots invites you to join him into the cave. And as you are walking into the cave, you realize it is completely dark. And yet, you are trusting. You are moving. As you are going down this cave, this tunnel, you are allowing yourself to feel revitalized, renew, letting go, releasing of fear, doubt, as you are moving, following the bat, following Zots deeper, knowing that you know exactly where you are going. As you approach light inside the cave, a cenote within, there is a jaguar, Balam, that is coming out of the cenote, shaking off and becoming human, becoming a jaguar, invites you to come sit with him. And you notice that there is a fire in front of you. He asks you, What do you need courage for? Is there anything in your life that you would love to tap into more courage for? See and feel your feet turning into jaguar paws. Your hands becoming jaguar paws. The mid of your body becoming a jaguar. You feel fangs coming out from your mouth. And in your mind's eye, seeing yourself as a jaguar, making a loud roar, releasing, being, feeling yourself to be in the space of fearlessness, courage. And now it is Zots, the coyote, and the jaguar around the fire. Thank you for joining them in the underworld. And together, let's take 3 inhales, exhaling through the nose, inhaling through the nose, exhaling out the mouth. Ready? And inhale. And exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. All right. So, yeah, we're a little bit past, just a couple of minutes past. I'll just mention, just highlight really quickly. So, for these shape-shifting energies, what was understood that there was 3 principal soul animating energies. One of them being the Teiolia. The Teiolia was associated with the heart. And everything that had animating, and pretty much like the drum, anything could be animating, have soul animating energies. What was at the center of it was the Teiolia, the heart. And it was like, for example, a journey, and I have one trance journey, and we'll be doing a lot more in the workshops of going into the Sacred Heart. Working into, and this is, and a lot of these too, a lot of it in Curanderismo, it's a little bit conflated with Christian traditions of Sagrado Corazon, and also the indigenous people also like they connected with that very much, because it's like they also believe that a lot of sacred items, people, beliefs, there was a heart within. So working and journeying into the Sacred Heart is a way of releasing Teiolia. A lot of times too, when they did performances, sacred performances in ceremony, and they would shapeshift, it was believed that they were emitting energy from the Teiolia, and they were sharing this energy with the community. So it was like community, like it was energy for everybody. So there's one way, it's like practice journeying within the Sacred Heart, and there's also energy with the Ihioro. And I've been mentioning this a lot too, because that's actually one of the ones that it was believed that that's what you needed the most of, to have like a lot of will. And a good one to do is the primal releasing, is moving energy, dancing, shamanic dancing. I do have some IGs on shamanic dancing. If you go into the TV, the IGTV ones, there's that have one there on how to do shamanic dancing. And I'll be covering that too in the classes as well. Shamanic dancing is a good way to move energy. And then the Tonali, a big one in Tonali is doing soul retrieval work on ourselves and with ourselves. It's a way of, because the Tonali and the Tonali was one of the only soul animating energies that could leave during life. If we have traumas, it leaves us. And it's in our head, it was in our blood, and in our fingernails. And it's something that, you know, it's really beautiful, because they do, like at the time of death, they do a lot of all these different ceremonies to retrieve those pieces back, you know, to get like our ancestors more of that energy. So those energies, those animating energies, those 3 animating energies, those are very important to build up, to continue working and going deeper into your journey so you can become that and feel that. And maybe you felt it a little bit today. You felt that becoming and what that energy felt like, and you can tap more into that when you build energy too. So yes, and in terms of where to buy the book, I have a lot of places that I have identified on my website, realizeyourbliss.com, under books. If you go there, you can see all the places that I recommend. And locally too, if you're local and you don't have your book, please support local bookstores. Tia Chucha's Cultural Center is, Centro Cultural is actually one of the ones that sells my book. So please support local bookstores. And also too, even like your bookstore, like there's some people that have been telling me that they've been having their bookstore order it for them. It's really nice to support local bookstores and smaller shops. And of course, there's also, if you need to, there's Amazon too. But I would say first, if you can, like, you know, support your local bookstore as well, if you can buy it there. So yes, that's all. So the classes that will be for the it's on realizeyourbliss.com. We will start in August. They will go October, November, and the first one that we're going to start with in August, which is on the calendar. My husband just took off with my phone. I'm like, oh, he has my phone. I don't have my calendar there with me. It's on realizeyourbliss.com under events. We're going to be connecting with our different animal guides and learning how to work with our different animal guides. And knowing different ways to do that. And there's different ones. There's the animal coessence, and there's different animal guides for different ways and different things that we can do to court them and work with them. And then going and working with the non-ordinary realms and working with the gifts there, and just exploring them for our own spiritual growth. And then also the last one will be shapeshifting. Shapeshifting and using them in magic as well too, because sometimes there's, well, not some, a lot of times they still today they use animals like for a lot of the magic, for a lot of different traditions. But that was also some things that were done too for shape-shifting and magic. And yeah, so that's all. So thank you guys so much for watching this. Thank you. And honey, wherever you're at, I don't know how to turn this off.